Kite Runner Chapter 15. 3 hours after my flight landed in Peshawar, I was sitting on shredded upholstery in the back seat of a smoke-filled taxicab. My driver, a chain-smoking, sweaty little man who introduced himself as Ghulam, drove nonchalantly and recklessly, avoiding collisions by the thinnest of margins, all without so much as a pause in the incessant stream of words spewing from his mouth. Terrible what is happening in your country are. Afghani people and Pakistani people, they are like brothers, I tell you. Muslims have to help Muslims, so... I thumbed him out, switched to a polite nodding mode. I remembered Peshawar pretty well from the few months Baba and I had spent there in 1981. We were heading west now on Jamrud Road, past the cantonment and its lavish, high-wall homes. The buzz out of the city blurring past me reminded me of a busier, more crowded version of the Kabul I knew, particularly of the Koke Morga or Chicken Bazaar, where Hassan and I used to buy chutney-dipped potatoes and cherry water. The streets were clouded with bicycle riders, milling pedestrians and rickshaws popping blue smoke, all weaving through a maze of narrow lanes and alleys. Bearded vendors, draping the thin blankets, sold animal skin lampshades, carpets, embroidered shawls, and copper goods, from rows of small, tightly jammed stalls. The city was bursting with sounds. The shouts of vendors rang in my ears, mingled with the blare of handy music, the sputtering of rickshaws, and the jingling bells of horse-drawn carts. Rich scents, both pleasant and not so pleasant, drifted to me through the passenger window. The spicy aroma of pakora and the nihari Baba had loved so much, blended with the stink of diesel fumes, the stench of rot, garbage, and feces. A little past the red brick building of Peshawar University, we entered an area more garrulous driver referred to as Afghan town. I saw sweet shops and carpet vendors, kebab stalls, kids with dirty caked hands selling cigarettes, tiny restaurants, maps of Afghanistan painted on their windows, all interlaced with back street aid agencies. Many of our brothers in this area are. They are opening businesses, but most of them are very poor. He teased his tongue and sighed. Anyway, we are getting close now. I thought about the last time I had seen Rahim Khan in 1981. He had come to say goodbye the night Baba and I had fled Kabul. I remember Baba and him embracing in the foyer, crying softly. When Baba and I arrived in the U.S., he and Rahim Khan kept in touch. They will speak 4 or 5 times a year. Sometimes Baba will pass me the receiver. The last time I had spoken to Rahim Khan had been shortly after Baba's death. The news had reached Kabul and he had called. We'd only spoken for a few minutes and lost the connection. The driver pulled up to a narrow building at a busy corner where 2 winding streets intersected. I paid the driver, took my long suitcase, and walked up to the intricately carved door. The building had wooden balconies with open shutters. From many of them, laundry was hanging to dry in the sun. I walked up the creaky stairs to the second floor, down a dim hallway to the last door of the right. Checked the address under a piece of stationery paper in my palm, knocked. Then a thing made of skin and bones, pretending to be Rahim Khan, opened the door. A creative writing teacher at San Jose State used to say about cliches, avoid them like the plague. Then he did laugh at his own joke. The class laughed along with him, but I always thought cliches got a bum rap, because often they are dead on. But the aptness of the cliched saying is overshadowed by the nature of saying as a cliche. For example, the elephant in the room saying, nothing could more correctly describe the initial moment of my reunion with Rahim Khan. We sat on a wispy mattress set along the wall, across the window overlooking the noisy street below. Sunlight slanted in and cast a triangular wedge of light onto the Afghan rug on the floor. Two folding chairs rested against one wall, and a small cooper samovar sat in the opposite corner. I poured us tea from it. "How did you find me?" I asked. "It's not difficult to find people in America. I bought a map of the U.S. and called up information for cities in Northern California," he said. "It's wonderfully strange to see you as a grown man." I smiled and dropped 3 sugar cubes in my tea. He liked his black and bitter, I remembered. "Baba didn't get the chance to tell you, but I got married after 15 years ago." The truth was, by then, the cancer in Baba's brain had made him forgetful, negligent. "You are married to whom?" "Her name is Soraya Tahiri. I thought of her back home, worrying about me. I was glad she wasn't alone." "Tahiri, whose daughter is she?" I told him. His eyes brightened. "Oh yes, I remember now. Isn't General Tahiri married to Sharif Jan's sister? What was her name?" "Jamila Jan." "Bye," he said, smiling. "I knew Sharif Jan in Kabul long time ago before he moved to America. He's been working for the INS for years, handles a lot of Afghan cases." "Hi," he said. "Do you and Soraya Jan have children?" "Nay." "Oh." He slurped his tea and didn't ask more. Rahim Khan had always been one of the most instinctive people I did ever met. I told him a lot about Baba, his job, the flea market, and how at the end he died happy. I told him about my schooling, my books, 4 published novels to my credit now. He smiled at this, said he had never had any doubt. I told him I had written short stories in the leather-bound notebook he'd given me, but he didn't remember the notebook. The conversation inevitably turned to the Taliban. "Is it as bad as I hear?" I said. "Nay, it's worse, much worse," he said. "They don't let you be human." He pointed to a scar above his right eye, cutting a crooked path through his bushy eyebrow. "I was at a soccer game in Ghazi Stadium in 1998. Kabul against Mazar-i-Sharif, I think, and by the way, the players weren't allowed to wear shirts. Indecent exposure, I guess." He gave a tired laugh. "Anyway, Kabul scored a goal, and the man next to me cheered loudly. Suddenly, this young bearded fellow who was patrolling the alleys, 18 years old at most by the look of him, he walked up to me and struck me on the forehead with the butt of his Kalashnikov. 'Do that again and I will cut out your tongue, you old donkey,' he said. Rahim Khan rubbed the scar with a gnarled finger. I was old enough to be his grandfather, and I was sitting there, blood gushing down my face, apologizing to that son of a dog. I poured him more tea. Rahim Khan talked some more. Much of it knew already, some not. He told me that, as I arranged between Baba and him, he had lived in Baba's house since 1981. This I knew about. Baba had sold the house to Rahim Khan shortly before he and I fled Kabul. The way Baba had seen it those days, Afghanistan travels were only a temporary interruption of our way of life. The days of parties at the Wazir Akbar Khan house and picnics in Pakman will surely return. So he did give the house to Rahim Khan to keep watch over until that day. Rahim Khan told me how, when the Northern Alliance took over Kabul between 1992 and 1996, different factions claimed different parts of Kabul. If you went from the Shar-e-Now section to Kurd the Parwan to buy a carpet, you risk getting shot by a spinner or getting blown up by a rocket. If you go past all the checkpoints, that was. You practically needed a visa to go from one neighborhood to the other. So people just stayed would pray to next rocket wouldn't hit their home. He told me how people knocked holes in the walls of their homes so they could bypass the dangerous streets and would move down the block from hole to hole. In other parts, people move about in underground tunnels. Why didn't you leave? I said. Kabul was my home. It still is. He snickered. Remember the street that went from your house to the Kishla, the military barracks next to Istiklal School? Yes, it was the shortcut to school. I remember the day Hassan and I crossed it and the soldiers had teased Hassan about his mother. Hassan had cried in the cinema later and I did put an arm around him. When the Taliban rolled in and kicked the aliens out of the Kabul, I actually danced on that street, Rahim Khan said. And believe me, I wasn't alone. People were celebrating at Shaman, at the Mazang, reading the Taliban in the streets, climbing their tanks and posing for pictures with them. People were so tired of the constant fighting, tired of the rockets, the gunfire, the explosions, tired of watching Gold Bodin in his cohorts firing of anything that moved. The aliens did more damage to Kabul than the Shirawi. They destroyed your father's orphanage. Did you know that? Why? I said. Why would they destroy an orphanage? I remember sitting behind Baba that day. They opened the orphanage. The wind had knocked off his caracal hat and everyone had laughed. Then stood in clap when he did deliver his speech. And now it was just another pile of rubble. All the money Baba had spent, all those nights he did sweated over the blueprints, all the visits to the construction site to make sure every brick, every beam, and every block was laid just right. Collateral damage, Rahim Khan said. You don't want to know, Amir Jan, what it was like sifting through the rubble of that orphanage. They were body parts of children. So when the Taliban came, they were heroes, Rahim Khan said. Peace at last. Yes, hope is a strange thing. Peace at last. But at what price? A violent cutting feet gripped Rahim Khan and rocked his gun body back and forth. When he spat onto his handkerchief, it immediately stained red. I thought that was a good time as I need to address the elephant sweating with us in the tiny room. How are you? I asked. I mean, really, how are you? Dying, actually, he said in a gurgling voice. Another round of coding. More blood on the handkerchief. He wiped his mouth, blotted his sweaty brow from one wasted temple to the other with his sleeve, and gave me a quick glance. When he nodded, I knew he had read the next question on my face. Not long, he breathed. How long? He shrugged. Caught again. I don't think I will see the end of this summer, he said. Let me take you home with me. I can find you a good doctor. They are coming up with new treatments all the time. They are new drugs and experimental treatments. We could enroll you in one. I was rambling, and I knew it. But it was better than crying, which I was probably going to do anyway. He let out a chaff and laughter, revealed missing lower incisors. It was the most tired laughter I did ever heard. I see America has infused you with the optimism that has made her so great. That's very good. We are melancholic people, we Afghans, aren't we?